Chapter 4 Understanding Laws. Introduction. You may be familiar with some laws, such as those that specify the age of marriage, the age at which a person can vote, and perhaps even the laws dealing with buying and selling of property. We now know that the Parliament is in charge of making laws. Do these laws apply to everyone? How do new laws come into being? Could there be laws that are unpopular or controversial? What should we as citizens do under such circumstances? Do laws apply to all? Read the following situation and answer the questions that follow. A government official helps his son go into hiding because his son has been given a 10-year jail sentence by a district court for a crime that he has committed. Do you think that the government official's actions were right? Should his son be exempt from the law just because his father is economically and politically powerful? The above is a clear case of the violation of law. As you read in Unit 1, members of the Constituent Assembly were agreed there should be no arbitrary exercise of power in independent India. They therefore instituted several provisions in the Constitution that would establish the rule of law. The most important of these was that all persons in independent India are equal before the law. The law cannot discriminate between persons on the basis of their religion, caste, or gender. What the rule of law means is that all laws apply equally to all citizens of the country and no one can be above the law. Neither a government official, nor a wealthy person, nor even the president of the country is above the law. Any crime or violation of law has a specific punishment as well as a process through which the guilt of the person has to be established. But was it always like this?
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें.
In ancient India, there were innumerable and often overlapping local laws. Different communities enjoyed different degrees of autonomy in administering these laws among their own. In some cases, the punishment that two persons received for the same crime varied depending on their caste backgrounds, with lower castes being more harshly penalized. This slowly began to change as this system of law began to further evolve during the colonial period. It is often believed that it was the British colonialists who introduced the rule of law in India. Historians have disputed this claim on several grounds, two of which include, first, that colonial law was arbitrary, and second, that the Indian nationalists played a prominent role in the development of the legal sphere in British India. One example of the arbitrariness that continued to exist as part of British law is the Sedition Act of 1870. Sedition. This applies to anything that the government might consider as stirring up resistance or rebellion against it. In such cases, the government does not need absolute evidence in order to arrest persons. Under the Sedition Act of 1870, the British had a very broad interpretation of what constituted sedition, and what this meant was that they could arrest and detain any person they wanted under this act. The nationalists considered this law arbitrary because persons were arrested for a variety of reasons that were seldom clarified beforehand, as well as because those arrested were often kept in jail without a trial. The idea of sedition was very broadly understood within this act. Any person protesting or criticizing the British government could be arrested without due trial.
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें.
Indian nationalists began protesting and criticizing this arbitrary use of authority by the British. They also began fighting for greater equality and wanted to change the idea of law from a set of rules that they were forced to obey to laws as including ideas of justice. By the end of the 19th century, the Indian legal profession also began emerging and demanding respect in colonial courts. They began to use law to defend the legal rights of Indians. Indian judges also began to play a greater role in making decisions. Therefore, there were several ways in which Indians played a major role in the evolution of the rule of law during the colonial period. Evolution here means the process of development in which protecting women against domestic violence developed from an urgently felt need to a new law that can be enforced throughout the country. With the adoption of the Constitution, this document served as the foundation on which our representatives began making laws for the country. Every year, our representatives pass several new laws as well as revise existing ones. In your Class 6th book, you read about the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005. According to this new law, sons, daughters, and their mothers can get an equal share of family property. Similarly, new laws have been enacted to control pollution and provide employment. How do people come to think and propose that a new law is necessary? You will read more about this in the next section.
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें। ऐसे ही और एजुकेशनल वीडियोस देखने के लिए हमारे चैनल होम रिवाइज को सब्सक्राइब करें।